Girl, that courtroom, you could slice the tension with a knife. It wasn't your regular Monday morning legal drama. This was the kind of hush that rolls in right before lightning strikes. The jurors sat stiff, reporters sat on edge, and even the judge, who'd seen it all, seemed braced for something big. Whispers had been swirling since sunrise, like wildfire spreading through every hallway of the courthouse. And then, boom, the prosecution stood up, calm, unbothered, like they already knew they were about to set the courtroom on fire. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, smoothly, we'd like to submit visual evidence, security footage from an event held at Mr. Combs' New York residence, March 28, 2016. That's when the entire room leaned forward in unison. But it was what came next that blew the roof off. The footage, the prosecutor said, originated from a server belonging to SC Enterprises. Girl, SC Enterprises? That's Jay-Z's corporate empire. That meant one thing and one thing only. Jay-Z's camp either leaked the footage or worse, he'd been sitting on it. The energy in the room flipped instantly. A tidal wave of whispers rolled through the crowd. Cameras weren't even allowed inside, but you better believe if they had been, that moment would have exploded across every news network and gossip blog within seconds. Suddenly, Jay-Z wasn't just another music mogul. He was smack in the middle of a courtroom scandal that could destroy everything. And Diddy? Chilly. He didn't flinch, but his legal team, they were panicked, whispering urgently like the Titanic just clipped the iceberg. The judge asked, is this footage verified? Yes, Your Honor, the prosecutor replied. It's been forensically inspected and matches the blueprint of Mr. Combs' security layout. The defense jumped up, shouting about unauthorized surveillance and privacy breaches, but the judge didn't budge. If it's real and it's relevant, the jury deserves to see it, he ruled. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up. And what they saw? Baby. It was a nightmare, dressed in designer lighting. It started harmless enough. Glittering foyer, champagne toasts, the rich and famous swaying to the beat. Faces blurred, of course, for legal protection, but the vibe, straight up power and excess. Until the 23-minute mark, that's when it all turned dark. The camera showed Diddy, clear as day, chatting at the base of a grand staircase. A young woman walked up, barely over 20. Diddy whispered something to her and handed her off to another man, who silently led her upstairs. No context, no music, no comfort. Then she came back. 18 minutes later, the same girl stumbled down the stairs, pale, mascara smeared, walking like her soul had just been yanked out. She stopped at the bottom, lost, looking for someone, anyone, and just like that, she disappeared from view. And honey, she wasn't the only one. The footage showed 3 more young women, same night, same routine. Diddy whispers, a handler appears, the girls go up, and when they come down, if they came down, they looked like shadows of the ones who walked in. There wasn't any direct violence on camera, but what was captured was orchestration. It was cold, clinical, routine. When the footage ended, no one moved. No one could. It was like watching someone rip the Hollywood mask off the industry and expose the rot underneath. Even the judge leaned back, visibly shaken. Diddy just stared at the floor. But baby, this was only the beginning. As the lights came back on in that courtroom, nobody said a word. Not the jury, not the reporters, not even the defense. It felt like time had stopped. The air was heavy, like mourning. Because everyone knew they hadn't just watched a party tape. They'd witnessed a ritual. And then it got worse. The prosecution stood again, calm as ever, like they still had bullets in the chamber. Your Honor, we'd like to call a new witness. She was subpoenaed last night following the verification of the footage. The courtroom held its breath as a woman stepped forward. Early 30s, nervous but fierce. You could see it in her eyes. She'd been carrying something too heavy for too long. My name is Kayla Foster, she said. I worked as an event assistant for Mr. Combs from late 2015 to early 2017. Her voice trembled at first, but then she looked at the jury and, girl, her whole vibe shifted. Steady, clear, brave. I just saw the footage, she said, and I remember that night. I remember those girls being taken upstairs. I was told never to go past the 2nd floor during events, and if guests wanted to leave early, we were told to distract them. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. Distract them how? Kayla took a shaky breath. Drinks, hugs, reassurance. If they were crying, give them tissues. If they were angry, tell them their friend was looking for them. We couldn't call Ubers unless someone cleared it. Who gave clearance? The prosecutor asked. Her answer? One word. Sean. A juror covered her mouth. Then came the most crushing moment. Did you ever see one of the girls return after being taken upstairs? The prosecutor asked. Kayla nodded, eyes misty. One, she came down crying. No phone. Her friend was gone. I tried to help her, but my supervisor told me not to interfere. What did your supervisor say? The prosecutor asked again. Kayla's lips quivered. He said, "Stay out of it or you're next." Boom! The defense barked. Objection! Hearsay! Speculation! But the judge, he just stared at her. Silence. The kind of silence that says, "We believe you." The objection was overruled, and then the prosecutor asked the question that shattered what was left of the courtroom's composure. Did you ever witness Mr. Combs personally give orders about those girls? Kayla didn't blink. There was a night a girl was screaming, begging to leave. Diddy walked by, glanced at her, then turned to security and said, "Fix that." No yelling, no panic, just power. The jury frozen. One juror was visibly shaking. "And why are you speaking now?" the prosecutor asked. Kayla looked up with the strength of someone who was done being quiet. "Because I saw that footage. The cameras finally caught what I was never allowed to say. I couldn't help her then, but maybe I can now." There was no cross-examination. The defense had nothing. And in that moment, the courtroom wasn't just a place for justice. It was a confessional where the price of silence had finally come due. But it wasn't over, not by a long shot. As people trickled out for recess, they weren't just stepping out for coffee. They were carrying the weight of what they just heard. Whispers spread like wildfire. The footage. Kayla. And now everyone wanted to know, who else knew? When court resumed, the prosecution walked in like they already knew they'd won the room. And what they brought next? Baby, it shook the foundation. They played audio. Yes, audio. And if you thought the footage was damning, this brought everything to life. It started innocently enough. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Then came the shift. A woman's voice. Nervous. "I don't know where she went." A man. Calm. Too calm. "She's fine. Stay here." Then a whisper. Close, frantic, terrified. "Don't go up there. Don't. Just trust me." Dead silence in the courtroom. The fear in that whisper, it was real. It was raw. It was undeniable. And then the twist no one expected. Kayla stood up again, not summoned. She asked to speak. She looked right at the jury. "That voice," she said. At the end of that audio, she paused as everyone leaned forward. "That was me." Gasps. Literal gasps. "Ha! I didn't have proof back then, just instincts, but I remember. One girl disappeared. We found her outside later, crying. No shoes, no phone. She just kept saying, 'I should have listened to you.' And when Kayla reported it, 3 days later, she was reassigned to inventory. Basement work, no guest contact, and just like that, she was erased. Her final words before stepping down, 'This is the first time someone's listened.'" The courtroom didn't cool down after Kayla's bombshell. If anything, it started to sizzle. Reporters scrambled to update headlines. Even the judge seemed rattled. Everyone in that building felt it. Something massive had cracked wide open. "And baby," the prosecution wasn't done stirring the fire. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, rising once again, "we now have a witness previously referenced in a sealed affidavit. She has agreed to testify publicly." All heads turned as a woman walked in. Plain clothes, mid-30s, steady walk, and eyes like she hadn't slept since 2016. She wasn't a party girl. She wasn't a former assistant. She was security tech. "My name is Michelle Rivers," she said. "I was a contract security consultant assigned through a third-party firm to work private events hosted by Mr. Combs between 2014 and 2017. I worked tech support and surveillance management." A collective inhale. This wasn't just someone who saw the parties. This was the woman who watched the watchers. "I monitored feeds, entry logs. My job was to watch everything." And then came the dagger. "I was present during the March 28th, 2016 event, and the camera that caught the upstairs hallway, that wasn't part of Diddy's system. It was installed by a guest. You could feel the energy flip. Again, the room turned ice cold, and when asked who told her not to archive it, she said, "An associate of Mr. Combs." The message was clear: leave it alone. The prosecutor pressed, "Did you ever see Mr. Combs do anything directly?" Boom. Just like that, everyone in the room stopped pretending this was a coincidence. The footage, Isla continued, was stored in a protected directory, only accessible through biometric authentication. 3 people had clearance: Jay-Z, his head of security, and 1 alias user. The prosecutor leaned forward. "And who was that alias tied to?" Isla didn't blink. "Sean Combs." "Girl, you could have heard a pin drop on the red carpet at the Met Gala after that." The entire room tilted. "You're saying Diddy had access to the footage? The very footage that incriminates him?" "Yes," Isla confirmed. "He accessed it 2 days after the event." Even the judge sat straighter in his seat. The real purpose was control. It was about leverage. Keeping eyes on everyone, making sure if something went wrong, they had the upper hand. Who had access to that leverage? Technically Jay-Z, she said, but the only one who downloaded the backup file was Sean Combs. Gasps. No holding back now. People weren't just stunned, they were shook. Gasps whispered through the gallery. One juror visibly clutched the side of their seat. This wasn't some blurry clip. This wasn't secondhand. This was it. The screen flickered to life. The room went dark again. The hallway was dim. Ornate, opulent cameras faced the doors of the third-floor suites. Doors Diddy didn't want anyone filming until now. And now the world heard it. When the lights came back on, no one breathed. Not the jury, not the press, not even the judge. Because this wasn't a witness statement. This wasn't even a security tape. This was the moment the monster looked into the camera and spoke. The prosecutor turned slowly toward the jury. You've heard the stories. You've seen the footage. You've read the logs. And now you've heard the voice. The man who sits at that defense table has watched all of us from behind closed doors. But now the doors are wide open. The defense tried to object. It was weak, a whisper. The judge barely looked up. The courtroom had passed the point of no return. One juror wiped away a tear. Another sat with clenched fists. And Diddy? Still stone-faced, but the mask had cracks now. His eyes flickered, his jaw clenched, his fingers twitched. His foot tapped out a nervous rhythm on the cold floor. This was the moment the mask slipped, and the man beneath looked terrified. That clip echoed in the courtroom long after it ended. Diddy's voice, once the stuff of platinum records, now haunted the walls like a ghost. No one dared speak. Even the judge just stared. No longer anonymous, no longer hidden. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. And this girl, he whispered, walked up those stairs, expecting music, lights, fun, and walked back down into a lifetime of silence. He stepped back. The silence that followed wasn't from fear. It was from reverence. Everyone in that room knew they had witnessed something. Not just a trial, but an unveiling. The judge turned to the jury. The instructions came next. But honestly, the decision had already been made in their eyes. And the defense? Not a word. No rebuttal. No last-minute Hail Mary, because what could they say? Nothing could erase the faces. Nothing could mute the voice. Nothing could delete the failed file. Court recessed. One last time. Outside the courthouse, it was no longer just a crowd. It was a movement. Protesters, supporters, survivors, fans with broken hearts. People holding signs that screamed truth. Fame isn't innocent. No more silence. We believe her. And somewhere in that crowd, quiet, hoodie up, no camera on her, the girl from the footage stood. Watching. She never testified. She never took the stand. She didn't have to, because the footage had spoken, the systems had failed, and the world had finally listened.